In today's video, we're going to take a look at Toronto condo units that have sold for $600K or less. The reason we're going to pick $600K is because I saw a lot of videos like this around 500. I understand it's the $500,000 point, so a lot of people are naturally curious about that, but I think there's just more interesting things to talk about around the 600K point, because with 500K we're really stuck with depreciated units or studios and the rare steal here and there. So let's get started. So to see what has sold for 600K or less within the city of Toronto, we simply just have to go to my system, the system I use for everything, clients, videos, all that. And although the subject of the video says 600K in Toronto, we're gonna just generally select Toronto and York region. You know, obviously we put Toronto in the title for the views, but you know, when we say Toronto, we mean GTA in this instance. So we're talking about Toronto, York, Peel, and obviously we're gonna look at unavailable, and then to keep it recent as much as possible, because you know, obviously we can't look at too far back. We're gonna go sold date as of the early November. So November 1st, this video is being recorded as of November 28th. Last status sold, and we're going to put a cap on the price at 600K. And GTA wide, we see there has been 617 condo sales. So to start, let's just purely look at Toronto. When we just minimize it to Toronto, we see 446 sales of units 600K and below. And you have everything from, for instance, this unit in 125 Redpath, which was a studio, sold for $382,000, to Toronto East, 1950 Kennedy Road, which was a 2-bedroom with 1 washroom, which sold for $400,000. That should give you a little bit of a clue with regards to how old that building is and maybe how depreciated. And obviously all the way to downtown at 15 Lower Jarvis. So there's a lot to go through with regards to this 446 results. But let's now even focus a little bit further on maybe downtown Toronto. Let's take a look at downtown Toronto. For that, obviously downtown Toronto, the codes are C1 and C8. For the most part, that's like 90% of downtown Toronto. And we see a total of 135 sales, once again, for condos 600K or below. And we'll start obviously from the cheapest sold prices. Like for instance, this unit in 36 Lisgar, which sold for $395,000, a 1-bedroom, 1 washroom, smaller than 500 square feet. It's still probably sold for less than $1,000 per square foot. And if you want to know my opinion on 36 Lisgar, I've made several videos about this, but and I've put it in similar terms in the past. But let's just say hypothetically in the past, I've given a review of this building, and hypothetically in the past, the building was so not pleased with my review that hypothetically they try to sue me. So hypothetically, if I were to have an opinion on this building, it would be hypothetically that it's an awful building, but I would never actually say that on any of my platforms because I don't want to be hypothetically sued. Maybe that fictional scenario of me talking about how awful this building is should maybe inform the truth a bit in terms of why it's so cheap. And in downtown, you have a lot of interesting cases. Like, frankly, in this early portions of this list, like we have 40 Homewood, 170 Sudbury, 251 Jarvis, 30 Gloucester, 15 Lower Jarvis, 35 Hayden, selling for anywhere from $420, $430, $450. Obviously, like for instance, 15 Jarvis, that was a studio. 15 Jarvis is a really new building. Price per square foot is high, a little bit overrated, but still good. And you're not going to get anything other than a studio for less than 500K, let alone less than 600K, right? But some of these buildings I just listed are range from really bad buildings or really good buildings that are maybe co-ops. Co-ops, once again, are cheaper, but they don't appreciate much. It's a more of a sophisticated transaction because it's not a condominium corporation per se. And then like you have something like this unit, a 1-bedroom, 1 washroom in 215 Queen Street West, unit 710, sold for $455,000. Once again, no parking and below 500 square feet. And I just covered this building in my most recent video where I covered a unit that has the hardest time selling, and it's been listed for 15 times in 4 years, and it was in this building, and I give a brief rundown of this building in that video. And I like, you know, the red panels actually, and I explained my thoughts on this building in that video. But one of the things I mentioned is this building has very miniature units, and this is probably not even one of those proper 1-bedrooms. It's one of those most likely walk-through 1-beds that always leaves me disgusted and disappointed. And then you have a really good sale in one of the better buildings, 250 Wellington, unit 1042, which sold for $525,000 with parking, but no locker. And I'm a huge fan of this building. Obviously, no building is perfect, and this unit was quite bright, but in terms of location, quieter lifestyle, it's definitely a B+ building, I would probably have to, but it's definitely a really good building. Now, some of the 1+1s that have gone below 600K, in this case in the mid 500s, we're looking at something like 95 Lombard, unit 1204. 95 Lombard, once again, an older building. You can already see it reflected in the maintenance per square foot. You know, it's 700 to 799. Knowing this building, I probably have to say it's probably in the mid 700s in terms of square footage, but the maintenance is $941. Now, keep in mind, this maintenance for this building is all inclusive, like water, heat, hydro. So when you kind of do the math, it might be worth your while, because the maintenance does come around $1 per square foot or below, depending on how much utility usage you can account for your own use. But at $530,000, it's a 1+1 with one washroom. It's a 1+1 with one washroom and one parking. And at 700 square feet, you're only going to find units with these specs that are selling below 600K in these older buildings. Which, once again, if appreciation upside is not your main concern and just quiet lifestyle or spaces, then it could be a suitable option. Now, in this case, this unit needed a lot of work, right? So as we see here, it's carpeted. It was probably all original, needs a deep cleaning, needs a lot of renovations. A lot of other units in this building were not going to go as cheap as this. And here, clearly, as we see the pictures, we can see why even for this building, this unit went pretty low, below 600K. And at the mid 700 square feet mark, really nice exposure. I mean, views from this building are quite beautiful. You have floor to ceiling windows, and you have protected views of the city. If you spend 50K in this unit to renovate it, and you can stomach the high maintenance, which once again is all inclusive, this was a really good buy, I would have to say. Once again, not a perfect fit for a lot of buyers. A lot of buyers don't want to do the work. A lot of buyers do care about appreciation, but for a lot of downsizers or end user buyers, this was really good. And if you want to keep to 1+1s below 600K, what has sold in downtown, once again, you can find sales, for instance, in this one, 14 York 4706, in buildings that I'm not too keen on for obvious reasons. If you're not familiar, 14 York is one of the ICE condos. Although the unit looks sexy and nice, looks functional, this is one of those buildings I flatly, in my opinion, don't recommend. But if you're living it, you're happy, ignore me. So there's definitely those out there for 1+1s. But really, for the best 1+1s that have gone below, like for instance 600, you have to look in Regent Park. Regent Park is one of the more affordable areas, and I think it's one of the more underrated areas. I think Regent Park still has a really negative reputation from many years ago, but the gentrification that has come there due to the Daniels effort of the master plan community has really improved the area. And I find the area, hot take, my hot take, I understand most people disagree, but I actually like Regent Park more than like City Place and even Liberty Village, because Regent Park has everything I like. I like the bike lanes, I like the soccer fields, I like the community center, the park, the pool, the basketball courts, the ice hockey rink in the winter. Believe it or not, Regent Park is one of the more family-friendly areas in downtown. And you might think I'm crazy because you have the image of Regent Park from 7 years ago, but that's not the truth anymore. So there's 1+1 in 55 Regent Park Boulevard, which 55 is one of the more mid-tier buildings in Regent Park. I like the Sumac buildings a bit better, the Tubman buildings, but still a decent building. And at 1+1, 635 square feet, one parking spot went for $585, and that's very fair, and that's a pretty good buy. But yeah, you see some small wear and tear on the floor. This was probably tenanted for a while, but it was recently vacated and staged for sale. Decent views, might be a little bit tight. The washroom, and actually the bedroom is actually on the larger side for a 1+1. And if we take a look at 2 bedrooms in downtown that have sold for 600K or less, the point becomes a little bit more exasperated in terms of either not so good buildings or much older buildings. You really can't find a choice building in terms of being a really good building and having appreciation upside, seeing 2-bedroom sales below 600. But for instance, like something like 40 Homewood is another example of a building that people consider to be in a sketchy area. Honestly, it's not, but I'm very relaxed with that stuff. My tolerance is different, but it has a more rental apartment feel. Like, not all units have an ensuite laundry, but this unit in 40 Homewood, unit 301, sold for $567,000. And it has like parquet floors, as you guys can see. And by the way, I actually like parquet floors. I really do. And I'm not a hipster, by the way, but I actually for some reason like these floors because these are the floors I grew up in. It gives me this nice feel. And I'm genuinely curious for how many of you, and let me know in the comments, would this be a turnoff? Because I know a lot of people would even prefer carpets over parquet floors. I actually love parquet floors, as long as obviously they're not damaged, they're new. You can put a new finish on them, brighten them up a bit. But nonetheless, that's a digression. You can see how something like 40 Homewood, which is a building I've visited before, can have a pretty good price per square foot. Quieter lifestyle, but not as quiet as other buildings like Lombard, because 40 Homewood has a lot more people coming and going, but the appreciation upside won't be as high as newer buildings or even buildings the same age, but buildings that are a little bit more luxurious. Here they clearly did work in this unit. I'm confident this island was a reno, and I guess they didn't decide to touch the floors. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we have to cut the video off here for today. I planned on covering the entire city. I'll do that in a future video. But if you enjoyed this video, as always, you know what to do. My contact information in the description box. Subscribe for more content and use that contact info and that link to book a call with me, for any buying, selling, and leasing inquiries. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.